episode of the winner series of the ANS Front Row podcast. That's right. I am so excited. So today kicks off a series of podcasts where I have had the pleasure and the honor of interviewing past winners of the Speaker Awards, their journey to the Speaker Awards, and today starts with my first. You know, Jazz, you were my first, my one, my only.
OG. I'm the OG.
You are. So I thought it's only be fitting that we start the winners series. We've got the opening webinar of the Speaker Awards 5-year anniversary on the 26th of March at 2 p.m. And I could not kick it off as you being the first guest. We'll deep dive a little bit into your speaking journey, into everything you've been through. But the reason I wanted you and I waited, I don't know, you kept me waiting, you know.
Not on purpose. I was speaking.
I know you're very busy person. But I was like, you know, Jazz, you are our first Speaker of the Year. You were the first awardee. The first person to go into Hall of Fame. You're the only person that's won Speaker of the Year 2 years in a row. And I just thought there is no better guest than you, Jazz, to be our number one episode on the podcast, the Front Row podcast. Well, it's the ANS Front Row podcast. And I can't wait to unpack your journey since. So you've been with us literally pretty much for 5 years, and I'll do my best not to put into the mic much more. But I'm so excited. So first of all, tell us about your life since winning. Since, and then we'll go backwards.
I mean, I can tell you, but if I wrote it in a book, I don't think people would believe it. It sounds like fiction. So,
but haven't you written a book about it?
I have written. So yeah, there is. I mean, because the first year it was on my birthday.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I'm going to bring a load of friends, and it doesn't matter whether I win or not. We'll just have fun. So we did that, and then of course I did win. More on that later. Then I think the main thing about that year was that I was riddled with imposter syndrome, and I couldn't quite believe that it had happened. So the next year I worked really hard to try and accept what everyone else already knew. And I think that also upped my game and gave me more confidence. So when I came back and won everything the next year, it set me on this new path of, you've got to go with fact over fiction, fact over your own feelings. And the fact is, I can't be Speaker of the Year and still be saying, oh, you know, I'm not very good, and I don't know if I can do it. It's because I'm undermining the entire process otherwise. So yeah, that's the biggest thing since. It's like, I keep saying to myself, it's not bragging if it's the truth. So like, to have the awards, the trophies, to be recognized by your peers, especially in Storyteller of the Year, that it means a lot, you know. So last year was the culmination of kind of winning twice, winning everything, and then being in the Hall of Fame, which was amazing. And then speaking, it's probably the biggest thing, speaking at the summit last year. So last year was a big year. The book that I wrote about my story was released, and that is now it really, I mean, the human you were designed to be, and not the human the world says you're supposed to be, and you step in. That kind of takes people on a journey of what was happening in my life at home and at school, and the difference that people made, the everyday heroes that I talk about a lot. So the book was released. Then the film that a production company made about my life was finished. That won an award at Cannes in the film festival of diversity in Cannes. And it's gone on to win awards in LA, in Miami, in Bournemouth, not as fantastic, but still, and all over the UK and Europe. Then I got a letter to say that from Hull University, which I thought was about student loans. I honestly was like, oh God, they found me. 30 years of interest. How much is that? But they were saying they'd like to give me an honorary doctorate in recognition of my work to public life and speaking about well-being and resilience. So this is it's all exposure from the awards, because I was hiding before that. So, and then 2 weeks later, a second honorary doctorate from Bishop Grosseteste College, Lincoln University. So I had 2 honorary doctorates. Then I went to Cannes. Then I got an agent in the US. I've done 2 gigs there. I've got 2 gigs coming up. I mean, it was an incredible year. I actually spoke. This is the biggest thing. So I got my agent in the US is getting gigs. That's fine. I'm doing like quite, well paid, expensive gigs, which is, you've got to get your head around that as well. But the IASB, the International Association of Speaker Bureaus, which is the biggest ticket of the year, speakers pay to have like 2 minutes to do a like quick intro. They invited me to do the opening keynote. Wow. I mean, that is probably the highlight of my career, to be flown over to do that keynote. So I don't, 2026 has been fairly quiet so far, and because I can't see it topping 2025. But each year after those awards, after that new information, that new invitation into standing on the truth about yourself when it comes to credibility and what you can do, has given me access to more and more. So
it's opened doors.
Massively opened. I won't say relaunch, because it's a journey, it's an upward journey. But I think people look now and go, "Oh, you're doing so well. Who's knocking out the park? Oh, it's Jazz." Yeah, 30 years on. It's not like I started this last year.
Yeah, right. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, but it's the story. The Speaker Awards and the Summit and working with you guys has changed the story I tell myself about myself. And that's why 2025 happened, I think, because I'm stepping into yes, as opposed to and I'm believing it. That's it. Anyone can stand up and pretend. Anyone can perform for 20 minutes and make it look good, but to live the life of someone who is in the business of getting people to change their hearts and minds and take action, that wouldn't have been possible prior to the Speaker Awards. I just didn't have the belief.
Wow.
Really.
It's interesting. You're, I think, my 9th or 10th interviewee. We're kicking off with you, but I have to admit that I did pre-interview people before you. So
get ready.
I've been having affairs all over the place. You might be my first, but before there was and actually hearing this from speakers, every episode I recorded, we're recording this live, we're streaming this live. I get goosebumps hearing that. It really kind of reiterates the work, and that it means something, that it's not just about the glitz of the awards, it's actually what happens after them. And every single one has talked about who they became as a result of it as well. So let's dial back a bit 5 years. It's, I come up with the idea of, hey guys, I'm going to put an awards on, right? I tell Simone Vincenzi, the sales director now, and he slaps his forehead in his Italian style and goes, Elliot, you and your ideas, you have to go get a promotional partner. I go get the promotional partner, which are Rethink Press. And then I decide we're going to do it on the 18th of November, 2022, which is my daughter's birthday, which she's never forgiven me for.
It's a good day to be born.
It's a great day to be born, right? And then I launched it to the world. And you were one of the first people that got behind it. You're like, Elliot, I'm in. What do I need to do? Now, by that, you were already fairly established then. So tell me, what was it about that made you enter? Why? Because you didn't really need to. Right. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand.
I mean, you say that, but at the same time, for me, being a speaker is a lonely life, right? You're going somewhere, you're staying in, even now I'm staying in very nice hotels, but it's still a hotel. I'd rather stay with the host. I'd rather stay at their house. I'm going somewhere, I'm staying in the hotel, or I'll fly to the airport, and then I go to the conference center, I stay, and then I come back to the airport and go. It can be quite isolating. And one of the biggest things I wanted was a community. I wanted to be with people who were running faster than me, so I could learn to run faster. It's like if you're Usain Bolt, who'd you practice against? You run faster than anyone.
Right?
So I wanted to find those people. And I knew from watching you and working with you and the people you get involved from, Maria, I knew that there were people running faster than me. There were things that I didn't know. There were people who had learned more. And as I became quite established and sought after in education and public service in that world, when I first started, I would go to an event and I'd be doing a workshop, tiny workshop. So I would go all day and I was sitting everybody's keynote, and I go to every workshop and I'm like, that's good. I love how they did that. Look at that invitation. Look at the vulnerability. That's too polished. They don't really believe what they're saying. I collated all this stuff. And then as I got more and more established, people started putting events on where it was all about me. So there's no one else there. Wow. So I go and it's jazz, and then I do a workshop after, or I go and it's jazz, and then they finish. So really, I didn't have the input anymore. I was doing a lot of output without the input. So when you start talking about the awards, I'm like, this is a place for input. So I had no I honestly thought that I would go and I would have a great night and it'd be fun and I would get
Yeah.
some feedback on, even if the feedback was you're not good enough. That's great feedback. So I put in because I wanted to know where I could improve. I wanted to do that. I would bet my children. Oh, I'd give them away anyway. No, I'd bet my cat. I'd bet my cat.
Oh wow,
Nothing
that's
told me
big. Not
to-
the cat.
Well, I know that's how important it was. I would have bet my cat that there's no way I was going to win anything. In fact, when we had the awards, I think I was entered into the best live gig,
Yep.
best virtual gig. They were the two categories, and
Yes.
because I didn't have anything else, didn't have a show reel, didn't have anything.
Right.
And on the best virtual gig was up first. And I'm like, and I love encouraging people. I love clapping. I love celebrating. So, and there was a few people I knew there, not many, but a few people I knew. So they called the people up and they called highly commended. And I was highly commended in the virtual gig.
That's
And I
right.
got a certificate. I was beside myself. And I came back to the table
And you're
I
like,
said
"That's
to
it."
my operations manager, and I said, does this count as an award? Can I put this on LinkedIn? Because this is so cool. Does this count? She's like, yeah, it counts. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to update my LinkedIn. I was done. It was the best thing that happened to me. I was done. So then when I won, when my name was announced for Speaker of the Year, well, for best live gig first, wasn't it? That was insane.
Yeah.
That was the pinnacle. It's like, I don't want to describe it to compare it to orgasms, but you know, it was like a very pleasant, wonderful, top of the wall experience. Then it was topped with best speaker. I shouldn't have said orgasm.
Yeah.
Now I've said it again. Stop saying orgasm 3 times. Oh my God.
It's all right. We're all
And
adults.
then it's a natural bodily function. And then, well, like, you know, it's in my keynote now. It's in my signature
Yeah.
keynote. When my name appeared as Speaker of the Year, there's a wonderful photo taken by Gemma Greaves.
I remember you're
of
shocked.
people screaming. Simone is in the back. My daughter's there, and I am literally.
I remember that.
I mean, I'm gobsmacked. I'm gobsmacked.
Yeah,
I
well, see if we
couldn't
can
process
find
it.
that actually. We've got it
I
somewhere.
will send it
remember
to
that
you because
picture
I've
really
got
well.
it. I've got it. I've got it.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
so
And
it's-
I remember that.
so then the whole thing was, and you know what was interesting, and I can say this now, the summit was in the day, the awards were in the evening, and the summit was in that one hotel room. It was quite small.
That's right.
In
You
that
had to
sort of
move
there was
in
only
that
about
first
a
year.
few of us there. But I went there in the day. I didn't know a single soul, and it was the most beautiful, like diverse, cognitive as well as geographical group of people from all over the place. There were women. There was equal women and men, for crying out loud.
I
this,
know,
there
right?
aren't any women speaking.
Rarity.
First thing you did, equal women and men. People from all nationalities and backgrounds, people of all races, people of all sexualities in this tiny group. And I was like, yes, this is my world. And I had such great conversations. But there was one odd thing about that day.
Go on.
Rethink Press was there and other people were there. And I would go around to these people I'd never heard of. They all had stands. And I go, oh, hello, I'm Jazz. And they go, yeah. And I'm like, that's a bit creepy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, people, the exhibitors are a little bit off. There's something off about them. Well,
Oh,
it turns
no.
out a lot of the exhibitors were the judges, and they knew that I had won these things, but they couldn't tell me. So
They couldn't
all
give it
day I
away.
was like, why are people being a bit weird?
I never knew that happened. That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
it was so weird. And because I thought the crowd was great, you were great, Simone was great, but I couldn't understand why people were being a bit sort of. And I go,
Stand
oh,
off.
hello, and they go, all right, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a bit
Gosh.
familiar.
Oh
But,
no.
Yeah, I never told you that because I didn't. It wasn't an unpleasant thing. It was just because I went on my own, so I literally knew no
Yeah,
one.
that's right. I
But
remember.
I found a tribe there. I found a crowd of people that became friends and colleagues, even in that first one. It was such a, to come knowing no one and go away with lifelong colleagues is insane.
That is amazing. And a lot of people we've talked to and still talk to, one or not, so they always talk about the community, the diversity in the community, the
Amazing.
welcomeness, the warmth.
Yeah.
Two things on that note. Once when I interviewed Adele Bates, who won Best Story last year,
Yeah.
she talked about how diverse it felt and how open. And it's interesting on your note, when I interviewed Bonita Norris for this, she said that when she first arrived, the first year there she entered, I came and went, hi, you're Bonita. And her husband, you've won. And he was convinced it's because I knew her name that she had won.
Oh, right. No.
Right. And that wasn't the case. The reason I knew her
Yeah.
name is because she emailed him to change her photo. But he's all for a
Ah,
couple of years gone, I knew you won. But she did win, but that's not why I knew her. Because,
that's not what, yeah, yeah.
I'm completely removed from the process. So a lot
Yeah,
of times I don't
you
actually know.
the only people who were like just genuine, it was you and Simone, because you were just like, oh, hi, Jazz. Hi, Jazz. It was only
Yeah,
the people who've been involved in judging who knew. So that, I think if you'd been, it's good that you're not involved, because if if you'd been anything other than Elliot, I would have been something's up here. But
yeah, something's weird.
yeah, yeah,
So tell me about the process, because obviously we
yeah.
refined it. You've entered a couple of years now. So,
Mhm.
you're someone, so you won. And I remember also what you said when you won. You said, this is what happens when you turn down the dial on imposter syndrome. I remember
Yeah,
that line. It's
yeah,
somewhere on YouTube as well.
yeah.
And I could see how much it meant to you. And I think what I whispered to you now is your fees are going up, right? Something like that, or time to up your fees. But tell us about the process, because what we, again, having interviewed a few people, they always talk about how it gets them to think about the speaker they want to become or come across as. So
Yeah.
tell me about the application process for you and your thought process through that.
Well, it kind of narrows you down, because I think people think they've got to have glamorous, glitzy video with 17 different angles and like full
Yeah.
sound. Like when I go to the US, they always say, which video would you like us to play before you come on stage? And it's basically a BAFTA winning Oscar blockbuster film production
Wow.
that lasts 30 seconds, and that's the intro. And it gives me the ick, because I'm like, oh, it's because I'm here, you don't need to do that. I just have walk on music, anything by Beyonce, darling. But
Oh, yes.
so I didn't have anything. I think I had one keynote that I had recorded professionally.
Hmm.
And now David, who I take everywhere with me, and I recommend to
Who's now
everyone,
the
and is
media
coming next year.
partner?
Yes,
Yes.
he is all my, if you look on my LinkedIn, all my stuff is, I've been working with him for 10 years. All my stuff is done by him. So he came and did that. But then there was other stuff that it wasn't that professional, but it showed where I was and what I wanted to do. It wasn't like a first date for me. I didn't want to show up with, here's my best bits. Because again, I was looking for people to say, okay, this level is not, your level is not here. This is the level that is excellent. So I put in stuff that was true to what I was doing at the time, and I wanted that. So yeah, I put my glitzy bits on
Hmm.
for the bit that I had, but I also entered real stuff, real,
Of
like my
course.
virtual one was they were all real virtual gigs, but I sort of picked something that showed the engagement that I got in virtual keynotes, because I know a lot of people say there's not that much engagement, but I tend to get a lot.
Mm.
And I put the bits on where the audience reacted and involved, because everything I do is quite interactive. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
showcase what I was doing. It was harder the second time round, because the
Yeah.
second time round I had to choose things that were in the last year where I'd made progress. And that made me, I actually watched what I'd entered the first time. I watched what I
Okay.
did the full lot, and it made me go, I can see where that's changed. I can see how that's improved. I can see where I have become so practiced at this, I've lost some of the vulnerability, which is the thing I
Uh,
pride myself on. So I need to make sure, how was I getting that? Every keynote I try something new, even if it's just a 5-minute piece. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to land. It's like doing stand up for the first time. It's
right.
terrifying, but it keeps you on your toes. And I don't want to become performative. I don't want that.
Right.
It might work for some speakers. It doesn't. I care too much to just reel it out. So, and I'm
Mm.
sharing like lived experience a lot of the time. It's not something I can do polished. It costs me. So,
Yeah.
I think the second time was much more revealing, because I had data, didn't I? I had, this is what a winning entry looks like. Here's where
Correct.
you are now. What's missing? What's been rubbed out vulnerability wise? What's been taken up engagement wise? What are the clients saying?
Yeah.
So it's a really good reflective, like every client I ever have, we always do a call afterwards, and I say, I know what I sold you, but what did you get? And they tell me what they received, what it looked like, what it felt like, what's happened since, what people have gone on to do, and all of that goes into the next keynote that I do. So
Okay.
getting those awards ready was like that on, times 10, because it really helps you to narrow down and look at the improvement, the growth, the journey that you still want to go on. And that's why I say to people, just apply. It doesn't matter. It's not about winning. It's about getting in the game. Just apply.
Yeah.
And I have bought, even since the first one, I bring people every year. I double up. I
You
meet
do.
strangers. I drag them along. They've gone on to
This
win.
is true.
Beth
That's true.
Sherman, I didn't even know her. She reached out on LinkedIn, said congratulations when I changed my bio to say winner. I said, you should come next year. Come with me. And then her wife was like, who is this woman who is taking you out for dinner with all
Who's
her
taking
friends?
my wife out for
I
the
know,
evening?
it's me. Wife stealer. So yeah, I've brought in Haley Cameron and
Yes.
Chris Bonello, and I bring
Gemma
people
Oten.
along who I know would function well in that environment, in that community, and they go on to win, which is amazing. But it's about the reflective process of putting your work out there to peers, to people who know the industry, because you can be super impressive to a crowd who aren't used to speakers. But I'm running against, like, I'm standing up against Lamar, against the Shaq, against Ruby Wax, against Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
I'm going to events where they are, so I can't rest on laurels at any point now. And
Right.
the speaker awards tie down that focused process. And even when the years that I stopped applying, because I keep saying to people, come for me, come
I
in.
remember you saying that.
And
Yes.
I want to create and bring people into that community. But I still do the same process. I still go, right, if I was applying this year, what would it look? Let's look at what you've got. Let's look at what you'd
Right.
say. I use it anyway, even when I don't send stuff in. It's such a good process for reflecting on what you are doing.
And let me just pick on that a little bit, because I think a lot of speakers can get to that point where they're like, I'm getting the gigs, I'm getting paid. Where does that desire of yours to always be better, to improve? I think we're unpacking you a bit here. Where does that come from? Because that's something beyond speaking. Because something that always impressed me about you is, despite the level of success, is you'd always come to the summit and with a notepad, and you'd sit there, eyes wide open, taking notes. You weren't sitting going, oh, I know this stuff. And that always really, that impresses me with any speaker, by the way. But especially the really established ones, I'm like, oh, wow. I don't know, sometimes that still surprises me, but where does that hunger come from for you?
That's a good question. Do you know, I went to a church with a mate a couple of years back, and I took a book and I started writing. It's like, I'm here to learn, mate. I'm not. This is time, right? It's more valuable to the money. If I'm going to invest my time, and especially, you'd be a fool not to take a notebook and write everything down at the summit, So, I mean, where does that come from? I think, maybe there's a tiny bit left of. There's a tiny bit of. Well, no, I think I want to learn, right? I'm in the business of education. I started off as a teacher. I want to learn. And I also know the benefit of opening yourself up. So as someone who grew up on the streets, abused, in childhood trauma, in and out of foster care, being locked down was a safety mechanism, right? It's a survival strategy. Going through like therapy as a teenager and in my 20s, being completely disassociated, because it's protection, right? You're protecting yourself. Being on high alert in my 30s, seeing threats everywhere, I feel like, because of, I wasn't a victim, but I was victimized because of what I went through. That's like a default setting in me. It feels like that.
Okay.
But I can't, that's not my fault, but I do have a responsibility to make choices that are beholden to the woman that I was designed to be, So I feel like learning, opening myself up. When I opened up, every time I've done it, it's worked out well. It might be painful. It might involve you swapping, being judgmental of yourself or being a bit more curious. It's not easy, but every single time, so much good has come out of it. So it kind of feels like a default setting to me to open up, even when you think, well, I know this. It's like, well, do you? What's the thing that's missing? Where's the next level? Because and I think it's a really good question, because I think I hit something where I realized kind of last year, I'm top of my game, right? I've got all the trophies and everywhere I go, I'm smashing it. Being the best isn't the same as being the best known. And it's not that I completely don't want to be famous. I really feel uncomfortable around. I like it when people come and say, Jazz, let's chat, rather than, as has happened, Jazz, can I touch you after a keynote?
No way.
Like, okay,
Someone
that's
said
weird.
that?
Yeah.
That is weird.
Can I touch you? I'm like,
oh my gosh.
But then I failed, because I'm trying to talk about how we can be human first. We can all do this. And they've seen it as you're something special and I'm not able to do it. So that was my fault. I failed. And I said, look, we can have a hug, but let's talk. You know, it's not going to rub off on you. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But I think it's that thing of knowing that when I have, and this, I don't say this very often, but I am driven not by this altruistic, let's make the world a better place, let's be positive. I am driven by dissatisfaction. And the dissatisfaction is people settling, people saying, it's what we've always done. What can I do? I'm just one person. In fact, oh God, Elliot, the other day, it's a big story, but keeping it short, I do this thing called Jazz
We've got the time.
Okay,
well, big if you want. We've got the time.
I'll tell you this because I literally processed this week, and once I process something, I need to talk about it.
An exclusive.
An exclusive. So one of the things I do is I work quite a lot with children in care, young people who are in foster care, because there's something about when you've had the experiences that they've had, the experiences of abuse and neglect and trauma. You don't need to say anything, you just get it, but it gives you it's what I needed and wanted when I was a kid, right? So we've got this project called Jazz Apprentices that Shropshire Virtual School do, and it makes me cry every time I go. It's stunning. But I do a bit of coaching, we do some sessions, and then they go and we deliver a kind of training session, I guess, with their speeches to council members, to staff at schools, to trusts, and they come on this. There's a road show, and it's all these different kids. So we did our first one with this cohort. Oh gosh, it's really hard. We did our first one with this cohort, and we did it in the council chambers in the morning, and it was brilliant. The councillors were leaving in, there was the mayor there were politicians there. They were astounded at 12 years old and 15 years old, one kid who's on the spectrum, standing up and giving the speech that we've worked on together. And it was around things of what I wish you knew. One of them, Kathleen, who is, she blows my mind. She's 15 years old. She's got her own business. She's already brilliant. Her speech is something like, what I wish you'd known. I was 12 to 13 years old. I was bringing up 2 kids. I had a job in the corner shop so we could eat. I was being abused in so many different ways. And all I needed was for someone to listen. But my behavior made that difficult and no one at school listened. So here's what I wanted you to do. Sit down with someone and just listen. Really listen. That will make a difference. That's her speech that she has put together as a 15 years old. She amazing. Is incredible. And obviously we've got duty of care. We make sure they're in therapy. We make sure they're anyway. So we do our first Jazz Apprentice, and I'm kind of leading it. We've got a little activity about toilet roll, wrapping them up, and balloons. It's all good stuff. And then they do their speeches. So we're coming in. I've got one kid on the door, and he's like going, we're filming. So it's like, if you don't want to be filmed, sit at the back, but we'd love you to sign this form being filmed. 12-year-olds standing up, sharing lived experience to a room of 70 adults. So some of the adults came in, they didn't want to be filmed. The head came up to me and said, Jazz, there's quite a few people at the back. And, I'd understand if they were like, on the run or in an abusive relationship. But a lot of them are saying they want to sit at the back because the hair's not nice, or they don't, they just don't. And I when I say I lost it, I didn't like smash chairs up, but I was like aggrieved. I didn't know why. And I went up to everyone at the back. I said, hey, guys, we've got like 12-year-old students here sharing their lived experience, like putting their heart and soul out there. If you need to be off film for reasons for your own safety, I understand. But if it's your hair, and I actually said, which isn't very professional, I do see this when I was a photographer. If you look at yourself, if you think, oh no, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly now, in 10 years time, let me tell you, you're going to look fatter and uglier. I've experienced that myself. So how you look is great. If it's just how you look, please don't. And I realized only afterwards, I was like processing it with the organizer. And I said, look, I tried to stay calm and I was endearing and polite, but I was raging about people sitting back. And she said, Jazz, it's probably a reaction to adults taking a back seat when you needed them. And I feel so protective over these young people to see adults putting up walls of self-preservation when they've got, I can't, Elliot, I can't. It was the same watching my young brothers and sisters being beaten. I can't. I have to put myself in. Now, that may be ADHD, it may be morals, it may be, but I am physically unable to I put myself in danger in order to make that okay. If I see a fight happening in the street, I would do that. So what I realized yesterday is I'm fallible, right? I'm still human in that experience, producing this thing with these children. I was like reacting to adults not being there for me. And that is
Right.
what drives me. So I am here to learn whatever it is, because I'm at the stage now where if someone says we're being videoed, I'd sit on the front row and go, come on. So I need to know that's not my audience. My audience are people who have self-preservation, who are worried, who are concerned, who feel like they're not good enough. That's who I'm talking to. So I need to be
Yes.
in their shoes the entire time. I need to meet them where they are. And I can't do that if all I do is sit in my office and congratulate myself on having a backdrop that looks like this morning. I have to be in a position where my audience are in order to deliver the best I can. And that means I take notes at everything. That means I listen, I learn. Even if the notes are, this is not a good way of doing it, I am going to take those notes, because I am only in this to show people that there's a next. That's the
Yes.
if I could do this another way that wasn't quite as stressful, I'd be doing it. I fell into this because of my passion for inviting people into, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
Thank you for being so open. And,
Yeah, I don't. I
vulnerable.
haven't. It literally, that was last week. Literally happened, and I only processed it yesterday on the way to Cardiff with
That is
someone.
incredible.
Yeah, but I
Really
think, and
incredible.
being honest, that's what drives me. It's not this. I think everyone thinks, oh, Jazz is so positive and happy. Oh yeah, I choose this. This isn't natural. Well, it is
But
natural now.
also, I
you know.
mean, you might be all this and happy, you've worked for it, but also happiness comes and goes and fulfillment
Yeah.
stays. And I think what you have
Fulfillment
is a fulfillment, is a fulfilling life. You've got, you're ambitiously, you want to be fulfilled and you want to fulfill others as a result of your experience. I don't think anyone could be happy all the time unless they're on drugs
Yeah.
or in denial, right?
Okay.
Or cake. That's it. Was it drugs or cake?
Okay. That's it.
Yeah, the amount of times I've seen your show reel, because also I show some people I work with as what does good look like. Well, no, what does excellent look like, actually.
Oh, bless you.
So it's really interesting to hear, because again, like, you could have signed your laurels and you came back year 2, and year 2 we didn't repeat that again, but you actually stood up on stage and had to deliver a story live, and there were 5 other people, all very, very good. And then again, I think I remember Max saying there was like half a point in it, and you won that, and then therefore you won Speaker of the Year. So is it that same innate hunger that kept you coming back the second year? Can I be better? Can I, you know, are you trying to be the man, or were you wanting to be Man City and just and win it all? You know, not, I'm not a Man
my
City
dream.
fan.
That's all.
You know,
Play for Man City. Was it the driving force was the day had the night was off the Shazam, right? Winning all the awards on the first, was off, but the day had been the one singular thing in that entire year where I had felt that I belonged. God, it makes me emotional talking about it. That I belonged in a. Why is that making me emotional? What is wrong with it? I'm going to be a hot mess the rest of this interview.
Okay, go for it. Well, this is
That
real.
I belonged in something, and that is my drive. You know, I want to belong. I want to be part of something. I want to be textbook boring normal part of the crowd. And let's be honest. I had tried other things. I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to, you know, diss anyone, and everyone's on a journey. But I had tried to join and been part of other organizations, and I turned up in the same way that I do, not expecting anything, and what can I give, which is my standard kind of like, what can I offer, and not just been met with a lack of belonging, but with an out othering. You know,
I remember this particular organization.
Yeah. So it was, and that it wounds you. It does wound you because, like I said, I find it can be. I work with Ed now, my husband, but the first 25 years of speaking, it's lonely. So I couldn't not be part of it. I couldn't not come. And I had more people to bring. I doubled the amount of people I brought.
You did. That is
so
true.
I wanted to. The summit was a no-brainer. Also, my daughter had gone to Fiji, furthest place she could get away on her placement. And she was arriving. I mean, I don't know how you pick these mammoth days in my life. She was arriving back in London that day after months of being in Fiji. So it was literally pick her up at 4:00, stay in the hotel, do the summit, you know, go to the awards. So I came back, and I didn't expect to win anything. I didn't expect to win. Speaker of the Year doesn't get decided until people have won.
It doesn't. Until everything's in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd entered there were different categories. That's why I entered. So I entered Best Live Gig again, because I'd upped my game and I thought, let's see where this is. I also entered positive impact. That
Positive
was
impact,
amazing to get. That meant a lot to me, winning that.
Yep.
And then I also entered, God, I'm forgetting now, but they're all sat up here.
Storyteller.
Storyteller. There was another one that I won as well, because I won 4 awards. Oh, it might be Speaker of the Year. Storyteller of the Award. Well, that one, I entered it, not really. I didn't think it was the first time you did it. And I don't think we really knew what would happen. And you had an idea, maybe we'll do something on the night, blah, blah. But it wasn't until the night that I knew that I was in the running for that. And I was in the toilets writing what I was in the toilet with Beth Sherman going, what am I going to say? I've got like 5 minutes. And I was like hyperventilating in the toilet. And I had this scrappy bit of paper, and I never look at stuff, but writing it down helps me. And I knew the most important thing for me, and I do this all the time, and this is one thing I think that sets me apart. If someone says it's an hour, I will finish on minute 60. If someone says, it's really important to try and do, and I knew this was 5 minutes, and I'm like, the most important thing is don't go over 5 minutes, because that's the most important thing. And do something that, who are you talking to? Like, what's it for? Who's it for? Who are you talking to? What are their challenges? What do they face? It's meeting people where they are. And this is what I see with a lot of speakers when they've got expertise in an area. They're at 10, the audience is at 0. They dumb it down, for want of a better word, simplify it to 7. The audience is still at 0. They bring it down to 5. The audience is still at 0. So you have to start where they are. That's what sets you apart as a speaker. So
You're
I
very
kind
wise.
of just, I've learned this, the hard way. So I was scribbling stuff in the toilet, and then I got on stage. I was shaking. I had a sequin dress on, and I could hear the sequins. I was literally shaking. And I thought, because these are my peers, people I respect, people I follow, people who get booked, the bookers look at me and them and then book them. And I'm like, they are the what, they're going to see. So, but as always, what I did, I did this the same on The Apprentice, the same on Blind Date, the same on Meeting Ed. All I've got is me. I'm going to do me, and I'm Marmite. I'm either you're going to like me and you're going to lick me, or you can jog on. I can't control that, so I'm going to. In
some cases, want to touch you. Apparently,
I don't want to touch me. Just so everyone knows, I don't do. You can't just touch me. I'll hook you, and we can talk, but we don't do touching people. It's not good. But I kind of, it was a chance again, I guess, to be told this is how far, this is the, I wanted to see if I'd improved. That was one thing, because I thought I'd worked hard in between the year. So, and there's actually David, my videographer, who came as a guest, just videoed on his phone, and he's got video of each time my name was announced, me winning, and my reaction. And it's just this like looking up to the heavens, and then, because you can't process it on the night. I can't process it in the moment. I know I was crying a lot. I know that was there. So again, it's an out of body experience, but it's saying your work matters. And actually what was really special, apart from Mary giving me that award at the end, what was really special was that people were coming up to me and saying, they were all voting for you on the table for the Storyteller. That was amazing what you did. I can see why you won last year, and I can see why you've won. And that meant a lot, because it was peers acknowledging what I was doing. That meant it means an awful lot.
It's interesting when you mention that, because actually one of my drivers have always been the peer acknowledgement. And maybe that's why, because even sometimes my wife's like, why do you always go after these things? Why are you like writing your 7th book? What is it? What is it? And I'm like, it's peer acknowledgement. There's something innate inside me that wants my peers, not I like you. I don't want groupies. I don't want fans, but my peers to acknowledge what I'm doing. And I think I completely understand.
And it's the community. I think with you, you have this innate drive to lift people up. That whole rising tide, you being in your orbit and just having conversations with you has contributed to a lot of my work improvements, because you innately, you do that. Just a conversation with you, I come off and I'm like, right, I've got to write this shit down. And
I never knew that.
I've got a whole file on my computer on Google Drive. It's like chats with Elliot. Everything you've ever said. And I put it into chat, and I pull out what are the lessons that I learned. The only other person I do that with is Maria. Maria's the same thing. this
Maria
innate
Franzoni, who's our
desire.
ambassador for those who don't know.
And this innate desire to rise people up. And I want more people able to stand and not for themselves and for others around them, because I feel like everything you want is on the other side of a 10-minute courageous conversation. Everything you want.
That's probably a great way of putting it.
Yeah, sometimes it's with yourself, but everything you want is on the other side of not a difficult, I don't like that branding, courageous conversation.
I like that. Well,
like when
you are all about 10% braver, so 10-minute conversations, right?
Yes, I really feel that. So that's what that's what applying, that's what I do. It's an act of courage and terror.
Courage and terror, I love that. So then we changed the rules, right? We had to, for various reasons. We made the decision and to open it up, not, partly influenced by that, but we just felt that rules needed to be reviewed. But then we introduced you to Hall of Fame. So you're in good company. There's you, there's Ben Hanlon, there's Jeremy. Jeremy, I can't remember his last name. The founder.
I always call him JLA Jeremy.
JLA Jeremy. And this year we don't know. And Jim Steele now, who's going to be inducted this year.
Yeah.
And, tell us. And then you're like, you know what? Thank you. I'm done, but not in a horrible way. You're like, where do I go from here? I remember we had that conversation, right?
Yeah.
But I feel that in essence, all that did was, like you say, that was the beginning. And then from there, more has happened.
Yeah.
And so for you, because you're still associated with us, you're still a big backer of us, and we really appreciate that. And I love what you're saying. I mean, this is all for golden nuggets. I'm a bit scared of the conversation file in case I say something wrong and you pull out a conversation that like, oh, remember when you said this? No, I'm kidding.
So far, Elliot, don't worry, just for you.
So I think it's quite interesting. So to be now, because, in a way we created the Hall of Fame for the likes of you, where people like, where do they go from here? Well, they go into the Hall of Fame. And so for anybody that's been watching or listening or going to be listening on the replay or on the podcast platforms, what would your kind of advice be? Because I do know we get, for example, some very established speakers think about it, but then they can't they're like, oh, what if I don't win? That in some way that's a reflection of they're not good enough or something. So what would you say generally to anyone, before we start unpacking a bit more of jazz and deep diving into you a bit more? What would you say to anyone thinking, whether they're really established or maybe they're in the newcomer category? What would you say to anyone about the awards? And
I think, look at the Oscars, right? You don't get A-listers saying, I'm not doing the Oscars, what if I don't win? Or I'm not doing the Oscars, I'm too good for it. That is a recognized space where, and it's got a lot of issues. Yes. But it's a recognized space for people in the industry who have a heart for something to get together. So get over yourself if you think, I'm too established, I'm too good. I mean, a couple of people have said, why are you here? I'm like, what do you mean, why am I here? This is the best learning of the year. Why would I not be here? I think that's the first one. But I would say to people who are just starting out as well, the worst thing that can happen is that everything goes right first time round. And you miss out on this golden opportunity of embedding ambitious resilience and coming back harder and tweaking what you do. Why would you not want that? I mean, if you are in it, even if all you are in this for is to get gigs and get paid, you could do a gig you could do 2 gigs on a weekend for £400 a pop, right? And make £800 a week. Or you could do one £800 gig on a weekend and make £100 a week. Or you could do a £1,600 gig on a weekend, or you could do a $3,000, or you could charge 20 grand and do it once a year. I mean, it doesn't matter what your goal is. This will help you get there. So your goal might be different, but that's what's beautiful about this. Everybody can be part of it. And I think one thing about the Hall of Fame, am I the only woman in the Hall of Fame? It's a bit lonely.
You know what? You know what? Now you say that.
I need some more
Here I am talking about diversity. Here I am talking about diversity.
There's diversity. But the thing is, with the best, because I know it's fair. You're not going, right, someone brand's got to win it this year. We need someone with a vagina this year. You're not doing that. But my special plea is to women. When I was speaking, I remember someone saying, I would look at a poster for a conference that I was going to go to just to learn. And it would be, I remember one in particular, it was a diversity event, diversity conference.
Oh, no.
And it was 3 main speakers, right? and they were all white and male, their photos. And I'm like, I hope one of them is in a wheelchair or gay, because it's not very it's
I
the
know,
optics,
right?
it's the optics. And I was never brave enough to say anything at first. And then there'd all be workshops. You could do a workshop, And then I remember one time I brought it up with someone. I said, oh, just as a little observation, you're doing an event and there's 40 speakers and 38 of them are men, and that's just, is it just for men? Because if 38 of them were women, you'd think it was a women's event, right? But if 38 of them are men, we're all supposed to go, it's for everyone. So I'm like, just think about what you're. And the guy said to me, well, we can't find any women speakers, we've looked. Now, that is like my 5-year-old coming downstairs of a morning, looking left and right and saying, oh, ninjas must have broke in and nicked my shoes. Where have you looked? Have you looked in working men's clubs where there may not be many women? Have you looked at who the top speakers are? I mean, we're here. We're taking up space. I want to encourage more non-binary, more women, more. Just apply. Get involved in this. Don't tell yourself the story that I did. And one might, I might not be good enough. I have an invisible friend called Tarquin. I've had him since I was 18. He went to Eton. He's very, very, a bit entitled, but not too much. And what I think is, what would Tarquin say when someone says, "Do you want to apply for the Speaker Awards?" Tarquin would go, "Yeah, sure." Yeah, it wouldn't affect him. Me, I'd go, "Oh, I don't. Well, what is it?" And how do? Well, I'm not sure. So I let Tarquin drive the bus when it comes to that. I just want to encourage more people, because you can't.
I agree.
Pull from what's there. So you've got to put yourself out there. That's what you do every time you get on stage anyway. If you've got a message worth speaking about, then this is part of that journey. So I want to really invite women in particular, and non-binary, just get yourself in there, represent, take up space.
I 100%, and I'm all behind that. That's one of my key messages. I'm always about, listen, I always say this, I would gladly give up my stage time for more women. We really push the female agenda. We believe wholeheartedly there's too many men on stage.
Well, I don't know that there's too many. I just feel like one of the things I speak in a lot of, I speak in arenas, but I was in a Victorian hall yesterday. I personally don't like it when the stage is level with the tops of people's heads or above, because I'm trying to engage and then you're looming. But then, and I was talking to the guy and he said, well, a lot of these halls were designed by Victorian architects, all men. And the whole thing at the time was about looming and credibility and status and power and blah, blah. And it's like, oh, right. So it wasn't that there were no great Victorian women. It's just they weren't designing stages and halls.
For them.
So, it's not for them. It wasn't for them. So now it's a case of just saying, I have something worth saying. I want to say it. And for me, we benefit when there are more voices at the table. I don't know that I would have even applied if I could see that it was all men. And I'm telling you now, when you come to the Speaker Summit, no matter what your background or where you're from, and you can come on your own and be a single parent, lesbian, wheelchair user, you will get the same welcome and embracing that everybody gets. I've received it, I've seen it, I've given it, it's standard. And that is not something you could say about a lot of organisations. So if you're going to do anything, do this.
And it's interesting you raised the only woman, because when we were talking internally about who we're going to give the Lifetime Achievement Award to, we were like, well, we really feel like it should be a woman this year. And Maria's like, obviously she's like, give it to me. I'm like, you can't, you're the ambassador, right? We can't give it to you, Maria. And she's like, right, I think I need to resign as the ambassador so I can be given this award. But if anyone's listening to this now, later, and there's a woman in the speaking space who's contributed to the industry, please put them forward.
Yeah.
Because, I said to them, we really need to, I can't believe there's no women out there that are massively contributing to the speaking industry, right? Which is the Lifetime Speaker Award.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think there's time for another woman to be inducted. But then, like you say, we also need the women to come forward to be inducted.
You need to put in, and I think that's the thing. It's kind of, I've got a T-shirt that says "brilliant" and also caramel taupe. I don't want to get an award because I'm brown and female. I want to get an award because of the work I've done. And what I say to people when they're doing jobs, just put it at the bottom. We welcome applications from people who are currently underrepresented in our organization. You better be freaking awesome. But if you are, and you happen to belong to any of these groups, come along. We will actually treat you as equal, because you can often be on the back foot of that. You can often think, well, am I, is it? So I think there's a point where you have to stand up. You have to take a risk. And I don't think there is a risk in the Speaker Summit, because it's so beautifully inclusive. It is. I mean, I'm on record as saying this, but it does feel a bit like a utopia. It feels like it's too good to be true. It does, but it is true, and it is.
Thank you.
It is a space to be in.
And you're someone that your time's precious. You won't spend it somewhere where it's wasted.
No,
so that's really,
yeah.
really good to hear. So yeah, the awards open up on the 26th of this month. So we're very excited about it. 5-year anniversary. We are introducing 2 new categories. We are fading out the virtual one, Jazz. That's going.
So what are the new ones? What are the new ones?
I'll have to reveal them. So the truth is, we haven't quite agreed. No, do. The honest truth is, we haven't quite agreed on them yet, but we know there's 2 new ones coming. We know we're going to replace the virtual one.
Is one best hair? Because then I could enter again.
Yeah, maybe we could do best hair, best outfit. Now we're going into a whole different category of speaking.
I'll sponsor that
best
one.
dressed.
I'll sponsor best dressed.
Okay, there we go. We have a sponsored. I'll have to send you the sponsorship pack for that. So look, we're really excited about that. So again, if you like it, anyone listening here, go to speakawards.com. You can go on the waiting list, or if the application's already open when you listen to this, you can apply. And like you say, like you've got everything to learn, right? You can learn either it wasn't successful, why not?
You win or you learn, or both.
Right.
That's your only option. Yeah.
And probably both. And I think everybody that I've interviewed talked about they had no expectations. It helped them streamline the speaker they wanted to come across as. Yeah. And winning was the bonus. They all talked about the community, the inclusivity. And it's funny because Adele, she talks about this in a podcast. When she looked at a category, she saw the judges. And she's like, Elliot, they're all, I can't remember, they're either all men or something. How does this play out in diversity? And I said, you know what, Adele, you're absolutely right. It just happens that this category has men as judges, but we're always trying to improve. And she said that what really won her over. How I received it.
Not being defensive, just going, oh, yeah, do you know what? You're right. Let's
fair point.
That's what I love. We're all learning. Yeah,
exactly. And we're trying to grow and we're trying to be better, and we don't always get it right. But we do get it right more than we get it wrong is the good news.
Absolutely.
So Jazz, let's unpack you a little bit. So let's dial back 30 odd years, right? So you talked a little bit about your background. You've talked about your journey as a young person, as a teenager coming out, and then you land in teaching. How did we go from teaching to international best-selling author, speaker, apprentice? So another quick question that, while it's on top of my mind, is the Jazz Prentice a little bit of a finger to the apprentice?
It was not my name. I did not call it that. They called it that.
Okay.
But yes, it is a play on being on The Apprentice, Jazz Prentices. Yeah. So I'm just going with it. But yeah, at the time I was like, could we call it something else? Yeah, no, it's that. I mean, when I sit and look at it from where I was, there's a line in Hamilton that Eliza sings, look at where you are, look at where you started. The fact that you're alive is a miracle. Just stay alive. That would be enough. And I look at the journey.
Yeah.
And I can't comprehend it. When I read this, this is my book, plug. I wrote it. It took 7.5 years to write, and it is the journey. It's a roadmap for navigating through, being resilient and navigating through whatever trauma it is, and coming out the other side and writing a new story. It's restorying. 7.5 years. I went back into therapy twice, and then I had to read it for Audible, and they said, "Oh, we can get someone to read it." I'm like, no way, I am reading it. I was over kind of enthusiastic. So we sat down, and also I said, I want to read it in a day because I don't want to be going to bed and getting up, because there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't talk about on stage because I haven't processed it to the point where I
have my copy somewhere. I'm quite
I don't do it. So I read it on Audible. I read it in a day, and then I spent the next 2 days crying. Just crying. It's heavy going. So the story, I mean, there's humor in there as well. People laugh about it. My footnotes are second to none, but mainly because I don't know how to use footnotes, so I had to make it up. But the journey. So when I was in teaching, I didn't think I'd make that. everything was this is the best it's going to get. It can't get better than this. So I wanted to be a teacher, the whole Mrs. Cook thing, but university, I didn't have anywhere to live. I would come out of foster care, you get like 250 quid and told to go and make your fortune. So I had nowhere to live. I was living in a community house, which my days were numbered in there, really. University gave me 4 years of accommodation and food. And then at the end I'd have a degree, which meant I could teach, which meant I would never be hungry again. So if I'm honest, that was a big driver, because I had to exist somewhere. So, but also it was this passion of, what if I could meet children where they are in the way that I hadn't been met? What if I could be one of the 5 everyday heroes out of the 100? And what if I could do that for every child, not just the children that need it? So teaching is my first love. I mean, that and my only love, you know, that what I do today is a form of that. Everything I learned about what I do now started in teaching. But when I was teaching, it started off with phonics, for example. And I know anyone who's got kids is going,
my kids are doing phonics. Yes.
I am to blame for a lot of that, so I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry, because your kids can read, so there we go.
Don't be sorry.
I'm not sorry. So I was sort of, there were two classes in reception. One was given Jolly Phonics, one was given something else, and we had to see which one worked better. And I sort of like did it half-heartedly, really. I did it half-hearted. But my kids seemed to learn to read and write quicker. And so the next school I went to, I said, look, they can't, I'm going to do this, because they can't do it. And then I went to Jolly Phonics headquarters. The address was on the back of the book. This is before phonics were in the curriculum. And I said, listen, mate, I knocked on his door. It's this big house. It's this old guy called Chris Jolly. I said, all right, mate, listen up. I've been telling everyone about this scheme. My kids can read and write quick, better than the 8-year-olds, and they're only 5. You should give me some free resources. I'm doing your marketing for you. And he was like, come in. So I went in. And then he said, oh, would you come to this event? I'm going to talk to head teachers. Would you come? And it was on the last Friday of half term. And I was like, yeah, all right. So, and then he said, I'll pick you up. And he had a sports car. And I thought, he's trying to cop off with me. That's what's happening here. I said, you're all right. I'll get the bus. So anyway, I turned up. He did a talk about stats and data and numbers. And then I talked about Gary Bates in my class. And I showed some work and writing. And everyone was in stitches. Everyone was loving it. It was the last Friday before half term. People went bonkers. And all the evaluations were, Chris was great. Yeah, very boring stats. Jazz was amazing. I wish she'd been my teacher. He saw that and realised he was on something. So although I didn't get paid, what he started doing is sending me out to Australia, America, all over the place, the Caribbean, talking about phonics. And I said to him, listen, your scheme has got holes in it, right? There's some books that are better than the ones you do. I don't work for you. I'm going to tell the truth, because I care about the educators and the kids. He's like, that's even better. So basically he paid for me to fly. He paid for my flights, and I took whichever boyfriend I had at the time. But I was going around inspiring people to use a scheme and I went to Trinidad, where I was supposed to speak to 200 people, and there were 700 turned up. The next day it was like full. I was in a shopping centre upstairs, and it was rammed. I'm talking like this all day. They went 14 places up the Pearls. There's this worldwide thing where you measure literacy and maths in all students, about 15. They moved up that as a result of that. Their whole country took on phonics and took on doing. I mean, I've written academic papers with professors about, like, I'm established in that world. But there was something I wasn't being honest about. I was terrified of people finding out about my past, this X Factor backstory I had. I actually, even through uni and through teaching, well, no, uni, it was more uni. I told people that I had a brother called Tarquin, and in the holidays we went skiing, because I was so scared. I was so worried. I was so terrified. So I couldn't say I haven't got any parents and I grew up in foster care on the streets, and I couldn't say that. So I lied. I lied about my past in trying. But I knew that reading, writing, and spelling were my tickets out of mindset poverty, not just physical poverty. That mindset poverty, and so I was passionate about that, but I wasn't being honest about why I was passionate about it. And so I started moving into, I worked with the government, I phonics stuff, and I advised international governments. I got quite big in that world, and I started trying to bring that into schools when they weren't looking for phonics training. So I was working with a company who were doing outstanding teaching, coaching, and I would go in and work with the teachers over a year, work with different groups. And one of the sections was on growth mindset, right? And I was talking about growth mindset with these teachers. And one of them said to me, I thought this was going to be tips on how to teach better. You're talking about an entire mindset shift. And I realized that some of the teachers I was working with didn't have a growth mindset.
No.
And I was trying to help them teach students that when they were, you can teach what you've read in a book, but you can only recreate what you already are. That's a message for parents. You can only recreate what you are. So sort your shit out, because you at least don't sit there going, oh, well, never did me any harm. It did, in fact, do you some harm because
did a lot of harm. Yeah.
So I started, and then it became harder and harder for me to not be honest. And I think I talked a little bit about how teachers changed my life. And that kind of led on to being invited to do a TEDx talk, because I was in literacy. I was one of the top people in it. And I talked a bit about, and in the TEDx, I was just going to talk about, it was an education, like, I was just going to talk about failure. But then someone said to me, we had a coach during that, which that's the best thing ever. Work with Elliot, work with Mary, get a coach, work with Mary, best thing ever. So this coach said to me, we did all the training. She said, I think you should talk about The Apprentice. And I'm like, no, nobody's bothered about that. She said, Jazz, it does a lot of work for you, because you're talking about, you got fired in the first week, for crying out loud, after all that. This is a good story. So, because I was trying to hide that. I thought maybe they won't Google me and find it. So there was that. And then she said to me, I said, if I'm going to talk about The Apprentice, I have to, what you don't understand, and what I hadn't told anyone, the week that came out, you can't tell anyone you're on it, right? 3 people.
Until it's released. Yeah.
You can't tell anyone. And the week it got released, like, suddenly everyone knows about it. Everyone's like, oh my God, Jazz, you're on The Apprentice. I'm on billboards, I'm in posters, I'm in magazines, I'm all over the UK. That night, my brother took a heroin overdose and died. So I then had calls from my siblings who we were estranged. We hadn't spoken. I thought they'd seen the press, but they were ringing me to say that, Paul had taken a heroin overdose.
Gosh.
And, I mean, the first thing I just collapsed. But I rang, the BBC was so good. I rang the producer. I was supposed to be on all these shows that week, because it came out on Wednesday. I was being fired. And I rang him and said, look, this has happened. I don't know what I'm going to do. And they kept it out the press. I don't know how they did that, because it's pretty, big news. They kept it out the press. They sent me flowers. They rearranged everything so I could, and it must have cost them a fortune. They were amazing.
Wow.
And so that, and I talk about this because it totally changed what I was doing. After all of that, the journey, etc., everything else, that was the worst week of my life. But after all that, I was thinking about it one day, and I thought, I know a way of navigating the journey that I've been through. And I'm not telling anyone, because I'm scared of what they'll think of me. I'm scared they'll judge me. So I'm keeping it to myself. Paul had the same experiences as me, but he didn't have people fighting for his highest good. I'm not saying it's their fault, but it's the trajectory, isn't it? You have a past like mine. You don't go on to do what I do. You go on to do this. So that's when I thought I've got to start saying it. So when I told her this, she said, if I talk about The Apprentice, I got quite cross. This is what was happening. This is what The Apprentice meant to me. People see the show, but what I was going through hell. And she went, you should say that. And I was like, well, I might as well stand on stage and take all of my clothes off if I'm going to do, because that's the level of vulnerability you're asking me to share. I was quite cross at her. I'm like, you don't get it. You don't get it. She went,
you don't understand.
You should do it. And so my TED talk changed. My TEDx talk changed in that last week, and it became what it is now. And that changed everything. And actually, the first gig I got after that, I was still doing all the phonics. I was still traveling the world and doing phonics and speaking in schools. And I got asked to go to California to speak to creative entrepreneurs. And I was like, what about phonics? Why do they want to know about phonics? We're all going to be doing it. And he's like, no, talk about, your story, resilience, the kind of, and I was like, I'd been hiding it. Then I'd spoken about it, blown up. It trended on Twitter. Last time I trended was when I got fired from The Apprentice. Then I'm trending because of the TEDx talk. People were suddenly asking me, and I'm like, I've got to make a decision. Am I going to keep hiding and try and like protect self-preservation up here? Or am I actually going to do what am I going to be the change that I want to see in the world, rather than encouraging others to do it? Am I going to? And so that's really where it started. I was training and I was speaking and I was traveling the world, but I wasn't talking about me. I was keeping it very safe. And then suddenly I started developing this keynote, and I was always very careful. I never been a fan of trauma porn. Like all the books when I was 14 were like, it wasn't even being a survivor. It's like, this happened to me and it's awful. And even now, Jimmy Savile, when they did the big expose, and they put like people on there who obviously have had traumatic time. I know that I've been through it, but are all broken and hurting. And I want to present another side, that this is what it looks like on the other side of healing.
On the other side,
it doesn't have, because I didn't have anything like that. All I had is, you're going to get diabetes and stress and drink loads and then die early. That's all I had, and the research shows that. But I am not a unique unicorn. I do the work, and that's why I am who I am. So I wanted to invite people into that. But again, I don't start at 10. I started for people who haven't had this experience. So I think, what is it that connects with them? And we don't all have the same story, but we all know what failure is. We all know what guilt is. We all know what shame is. We all want something better for our kids or other people than we had for ourselves. So that's where I started. I started building something based on what I knew about teaching, about outstanding teaching, about resilience, about growth mindset, about failure. I pulled that in. I poured myself in it, and I started building keynotes around those themes. And then everybody I spoke to, it was, what do you want people, what do you want the audience to say, do, think and feel after your event? And then I will craft something that gets them there. And I used to do because I was charging 50 quid at the beginning. I used to charge 50 pounds to get out.
At least you were charging.
I was the 2 times that I did it free, one of them is before phones. I'm so old. And I said, can you send me a map? And they said, no, because it costs 10p to photocopy. So when you do it free, you just not, it's free. It's like a free sample on a street. You're not going to respect it. So anyway, charge is what I say. So I was charging 50 quid. And I remember kind of going along and thinking, how do I give them more than 50 quid's worth? So I can up my price. If I do it, I'm going to up my price. So I just started doubling, and went on from there. But it was, every event was terrifying, because I didn't know how they were going to react. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And what you see now, what I do now at the Speaker Summit was a version of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Is very much all the mistakes pulled together and all the things that land pulled together. But for every audience, it has to be adapted for them, so that what they say, do, think and feel afterwards is important. A friend of mine worked with Seth Godin. And he said to Seth, he talked about me and said, this is what Jazz is doing. She wants to get people to take action. And Seth Godin said, that's hard. My goal is to inspire people. That's all. Just get them inspired. Well, I can inspire people without getting out of bed. If I'm going to turn up, you better be taking action after I've spoken. You better be doing more of something or less of something. You better be saying no more or yes more, because it's cost me. And so the journey from teaching, I feel like I'm still a teacher. I'm just showing up in a way that makes sense to people and takes them on, because I don't want to indulge. I don't want to be, it's my own story. Look at me, aren't I amazing? What's the point in that? Beyonce's amazing. Watch your special on Netflix. I want to actually say, this is possible for us. So what's your next step? What's your next? And that is that's teaching. It's like, great, this is what a good one looks like. This is where you are. This is your next step. That's teaching. So I feel like I fell into a world where I could be freer, because also I'm a terrible employee. Imagine trying to employ me, especially after the apprentice.
I couldn't. No.
I'm a terrible employee. I'm always, this doesn't work. We need to do this better. Let's do this. I've got an idea. I mean, I'm hard work. So I've always worked for myself on the side. But the phonics, and then what happened is I did less phonics talks and more kind of resilience talks. And then that's what I started being booked for. So I didn't even plan it. It happened because I said yes. And I put myself out there, and I took a risk when I didn't know if it would work.
It sounds a lot like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your journey to your TEDx was about owning your story. And it sounds like the moment you owned your story, then it kind of all started to happen. You owned your past, you owned the good, the bad and the ugly, and the downright traumatic, right? And once you took ownership of that, then that kind of allowed to create the stepping stone towards where you now are. Yeah. But I think it sounds that that's what happened in that process. Would you say that's about right?
I think you're right. And I think owning it started off very gingerly. and
Yeah.
like, almost quite fearfully and very riddled with imposter syndrome and very doubt driven. But there's on Netflix, there's Taylor Swift special, and in that she talks about how she was doing what the record company and the PR company wanted her to do, because and she wasn't happy, and then she started saying, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing, and then she became like the queen of everything.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Swiftie, but you've got to respect the way she pulls community together. So, and I thought that's the secret, isn't it? That's the secret. And that's what those teachers that sat at the back, they could see 12-year-olds emoting, but they want to opt out to protect themselves. That's it's a natural thing to do. It's like, well, let's just, but what if we stood? What if we did say, whatever your corner is, whatever you want to comment on or fight on or bring some insight into, what if you did, So it's that, I think that was a gradual journey, which got expedited by the TEDx and the Speaker Awards. They're the two biggest things that have driven it forward. But I guess it's turning the volume down on fear, becoming a fear fighter, which is one of my Shiro's journeys. It's the first one, actually. You can't do anything until you start fighting fear, because fear will keep you keep you small, keep you out of the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things I want to ask you, and then we'll start wrapping up. You've given so much value
stay forever. I don't want to wrap up.
I know. Well, we can stay forever if you want. The longest podcast in the world. We can hold the record for that.
Just keep going.
Let's do it. Let's just keep going. Man, it's not a bad idea, Let's do a podcast marathon.
There must be a world record for that. I wonder what that is.
I do know Rob Moore did one, didn't he, for 24 hours during a pandemic?
24 hours? That's a piece of piss. I could go longer than that.
Exactly. And so I don't know about you and your household, but in my household, the kitchen table is like where everything happens, right? My kids do their art there, they draw, we eat. This is where my wife and I tend to go our visions and bit. What in your household is that for you? Is it the kitchen table? You'll get together, talk about ideas with Ed and your kids and things and visions and drawing and things. Do you have what's on your kitchen table, even if it's metaphorically?
There is a kitchen table. We call it open table sometimes, where there's only two rules. You can say anything you like, but you're not allowed to judge yourself, and you're not allowed to judge others. Now, this is, anyone can call open table, and my kids have used this against me to kind of share. The first time we did it, I'm a teacher, right? So I'm going to come up with questions. So I said, what habit of your parents would you like to take on when you're a grown-up? My daughter's 12. She says, I know something I don't want to do. And I was like, I can't think what that is. So I said, what is it? And she said, with no judgment in her voice, when I grow up, I want to do a job where I can just come home at night and be present with the people that I love.
Wow.
And I want to go, how dare you? I don't do that. Hoisted by my own leotard, you can't judge yourself.
Right.
You can't judge anyone else. So my only other option was to be, I'm a terrible person. But that's judging me. So all I could say was, well, tell me more. And she talks about how Dad loves his job. I was teaching at the time, loves it. But the thing is, sometimes Leo talks to me and I'm not even taking my eyes off my laptop. I'm like, Garamond sounds like a font. Is that a Pokemon? Right, okay. So and she said, I just want a job. And now at this point, this is why we love our open table. You can choose, it's 2 G's. You can choose guilt or gratitude, and guilt is easier. You just want to feel bad about yourself. But what we try and do is choose gratitude. This is what I found out in chapter 12 of Parenting Trinity. The pen's in my hand, I can change chapter 13. So our kitchen table is always EBI, WWW. What went well, even better if. What are the picks? What are the peaks? We do this every time we sit and eat for a day. That's what we do. And what's on there is what is next. Our kitchen table is all about next. Not like in any situation, you can keep doing what you're doing. You can do nothing at all, or you could do something new. And when you talk about future, people get scared. But if you talk about the next step, people tend to be able to embrace. So we talk about next. What's next? I used to say to the kids, what did you fail at today at school? And they come back and they go, nothing. And I'd be like, oh, well, there's always tomorrow, because I'm like, fail so that you can learn something from it. So that's our kitchen table. But the place I think that's akin to yours is my shower. And this is just me and Ed now. But I have this thing. I have a morning download. I wake up buzzing, full of ideas. And so it's ADHD. I know that's what's my driver is. But it's just, I've always done it. So I'll say to Ed, will you come and talk to me in the shower? What
Ah,
Ed's learned is, what I mean is, will you sit there and engage in active listening while I'm in the shower and talking at you? Because if not, if he talks back, I go, no, 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 I haven't finished. So I download stuff, and that is kind of like when I have calls after keynotes. I'm like, what
yeah,
did you take away? What was it like? What I take those things and I go, I've just had this great idea because Maureen from Google said this after we spoke. And I'm thinking, what if we did this? And what would it look like for this?
yeah.
Oh, and what Maria mentioned this. Elliot said something the other day. What would that? And then we ideate. And I'm in the shower
Right.
and he's listening. And it's
Is he
all
taking note or just
no,
listening?
I have to have him looking at me. I can't have him looking down.
Ah, okay.
He can't look on his phone because he's not listening. I
Okay.
just need someone who is going, oh, yeah, oh, really? Come on. I need that. So as long as he's
When?
doing
Yesterday? Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. God, really? Right. I don't want input. I just want it's
Just
only
want to
5 or 10
download.
minutes. But that is a space where I start going, right, if I had all the time and I didn't need to worry about earning money, what would I do next? And what I would do next is invite more people into courageous conversations. I would do, if I won the lottery tomorrow, which I don't even do. So if someone else won the lottery and gave me a load of money, I would do this. I'd probably only work till 12 and then I'd go for a run and have lunch, and I don't know what you do when you're rich, but I'd do that. But, but I don't know what that is. I must find out what you do when you do it. But
I don't have the answer either.
I don't know. Let's find out, and then we know. But I would be doing this, but I'd be doing this without the kind of, looking at the year, looking at the quarters. Have we got enough gigs? Who do we go to? I'd be looking at without that. I'd be doing the stuff I love, which is creating content and showing up and shining, and inviting people into courageous conversations. So that's always on our kitchen table / shower cubicle.
I mean, it'd be weird if you had a shower on your kitchen table. That'd just be
Right,
weird.
yeah. I mean, we have got our washing machine in the bathroom because otherwise you've got to bring your knickers downstairs and where you're cooking and put.
I mean,
So we
that
moved
makes
the washing
sense. I
machine
mean,
upstairs.
that's
There's
nearby.
nothing
It's near the
like it.
bedrooms.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that part
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
Not near
yeah.
your fridge. You put your washing machine in your fridge. It's insane. So yeah,
Well, we do actually.
I know
But there we go.
how houses are designed, but I'm like, well, I don't like my dirty knickers next to the.
In the house we're buying this year, I'll put the washing machine in the bathroom.
You should
There we
do
go.
it. It's
With
change your
the-
life, Elliot. It'll change your life.
Signed off by Jazz. This is approved by Jazz with the signature.
This is the best advice I have for you.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I was going to say dishwasher. Put your washing machine in your bathroom.
Yeah, not your.
No dishwasher. I don't think it has the same impact. And it's true. My daughter loves Taylor Swift, and I
your
actually
daughter's
am
amazing.
trying to encourage her
Sweetie.
to learn more about failure. So I even went and kind of created this whole document with all these like professional athletes. I know she looks up to, like Beth Mead and a lot of the sort of lionesses, Chloe Kelly.
Yeah.
And I purposely went and said, can you point out all the points in their career they failed?
Yeah.
And because my daughter's 9 and she's really kind of struggling with the whole, she's very ambitious, she's very driven. I don't know where she gets that from. She really wants to do that well. She really wants to do well. She's very academic, which she doesn't get from me. But equally, I can see how it's starting to be quite detrimental, like the thought of not doing well. So I've I pointed out like Beth Mead's career to becoming a lionesses and her injuries and the time she had to take out when her mother died and all these things. And I'm really trying to teach her around, like a bit like you're doing. It's okay to fail and it doesn't define you. It's not easy with a 9-year-old, but I'll find that part in the because she'd love to watch that documentary, and I'll make sure she does.
And especially on failure with girls, because what you get, year 6 girls are like, they're the ones that know everything, and there's always a little group, and they go through, and then they get to being top of everything academically can be difficult, because when they get to university or when they get to college and they're not the big fish in the small pond anymore, suddenly if they don't have the mental resilience of how to cope with that. So the reason I said to my kids, what did you fail at today? And they started saying things that after a while, it's a great question to ask them. They started saying things like, I got stuck in maths. So what I did was I asked my mate, or I couldn't find anyone to play with. So I sat on the learning. So what they're showing me is this happened and this is what I did as a result. So they are creating a failure CV. What do you do when you don't know what to do? And what that's meant, if you look at my kids now, I mean, they are, one's just finished. She's got a first. She was Dean Student of the Year, first in psychology, going on to clinical. She's very academic. The other one's doing business, but he set up his own photography. He did a job, got paid £11 an hour. It's like, set up his own, what's he call it now? Media agency.
Oh,
He does
wow.
video. He's coached others, mentored others, gets driven all over the place to do these shoots. That's all
Wow.
from me saying, so what can you fail at? He offered to do the school prom when he was like 17. He said, oh, I'll take photos. And I said, great. What are the things you could fail at? He said, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I said, right. So let's go fail. Let's go do it. So
Let's do it. Yeah.
built on, you don't get to success. You don't wake up and then be born a lioness. You fail and then you reframe, and then you fail and then you reframe, whether it's speaking, teaching, or being a 9-year-old girl. And what she needs is her own experience of failure reframe. Yes, through others, through you guys. It's really important. I used to tell my kids all the time what I failed at, and I would be like, wait, okay, I feel like crying, give me a minute. Okay, no one died. Here's a way of going forward. I would literally model what it looks like to come back from failure. And that is who they are and what they do. To the extent of my youngest, who's on the spectrum, you know, has his own issues, but he's at a great school, and he's so brave. He went to another school to volunteer for D of E, and I said, oh, I'll come with you. He's like, I'm going to do it myself. And he introduced himself. And I mean, that would have been unheard of. But it's this journey of growth by failing for success. Fail your way. And I know it's a bit twee. It's a bit twee.
No, but it's true, right?
But it's, I don't, in school, you get this message of, you know, be creative. And then suddenly it changes to you either right or you're wrong. But what I think we miss a lot of the time is the failure is fertile ground for growth. And you don't get to be at the top unless you have fallen. The idea is to shorten the time between being on the ground and getting back up again. And I feel this so passionately with kids, and especially young girls who can be very academic, but then struggle with, okay, this time I wasn't top of the class. What do I do here? So, you know, you're doing exactly the right thing. With that.
So I need to talk to more, and I'll mention that to my wife about talking more about failure, because she probably does see like us traveling and doing this stuff, and Dad's writing the 7th book.
You got to rebrand it. Rebrand failure.
Rebrand it, absolutely. And last thing before we this will go. I have a feeling this will go on for a while. But what's the one thing we should be talking about that we're not talking about?
What are we not talking about? I feel like I'm talking about it. I guess it's the power that we have to make a difference. Okay. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Israel and Palestine. We're talking about different reform MPs saying women should be taxed if you don't have kids. We're talking about war happening. We're talking about abortion rights. We're talking about all the things that are negatively impacting our lives. We're talking about toxic masculinity. What we're not talking about is I cannot control what politicians get up and do tomorrow. I mean, I can vote, but even if it's not my country, I can't. I have no control over that. And when I just listen to the news and see what's coming on and doing that, it literally degrades my ability to human. I've stopped watching the news or reading about the news. I talk about it with people rather than sit on my own scrolling, reading it, because it's affecting. It makes my anxiety goes through the roof, and then the way I behave in situations elsewhere goes through the roof. And my mental health, I treat it like sobriety. It's more important to me than anything or anyone else on the planet. So what I want to do is tell a more compelling story. Whenever there's a disaster, there's helpers. There's people running towards danger. Whenever there's something going on, there's people fighting against it. Whenever you hear about rights being removed, there's people resisting. And it's not always these big stories and marches and torches. And sometimes it's the smallest thing you can do for yourself. You talking to your daughter about rebranding failure. That's something completely within your power. Me deciding that I'm not going to let imposter syndrome drive my decisions. That's the smallest thing I can do. And when you start doing these incremental things, they get bigger, but we need more stories. And I feel like for me, that's that picture on there. I put 20 photos into chat, and I said, come up with an image of me, a graphic that illustrates the duality of my life. And it came up with it. And I love this. Not black enough to be black, not white enough to be white, not working class enough to be working class. One of my kids has been skiing, but not middle class enough to be middle class. It was a curse, but not fitting anywhere. But what I realized is actually standing in the middle means you get to tell these compelling stories, and people from both sides join the conversation. And that's what I wish we were talking about more, rather than being a victim to things that are happening in the news, rather than allowing the state of the world to impact what we do in our own house. We need to be talking about what it looks like as an individual, obviously impacted and affected by everything that's going on, but what it looks like when you stand and when you do what's within your control, the way you show up. So there's, like, we talk about toxic masculinity. What's the opposite to that? We don't know. Is it positive masculinity? Is it, I don't know, you know, is it 26 masculinity? But we need better stories. We should be talking about what it looks like on the other side rather than moaning about what it currently is. That is my big pull. I feel completely hopeless, completely distressed, I spent a day a couple of weeks ago not being able to function because it had been announced the Taliban had announced that now on top of everything else, domestic violence towards women is okay as long as you don't break any bones. And I spent an entire day not functioning because of that. Now, what can I do? Do I go to the Taliban and go, hey, I don't think that's fair? Do I, you know, or do I say, well, you know,
you could
everyone
try.
What I can do is use what I have, and if that's just my house and my family and my kids and my friends, have the conversations. I say to my husband all the time, listen, you talk to your mates about, you know, homophobia, about domestic violence, have these conversations about them. Because when people are going, not all men are rapists, well, you know, some of them are. And if you're having a conversation, someone says something sexist or racist, talk about it, you know, step in, invite them, get curious, rather than just, because what we're all doing is shrinking. Someone tells a compelling story, which is next, and we shrink and we turn the volume down. And I did that for the first 25, 30 years of my life. And there is nothing that is going to make me go back to that. I have not worked this hard and fought this long to live some mediocre life where I'm scared and in hiding. I won't do that. I won't do it. So what we should be talking about is what we have the power to do. And the only thing we are in control of is the way we show up and the areas we show up in. So that's what I see. That's what my heroes do. That's what I see people doing. That's what I try and emulate. And I'm scared. I'm scared as well. But that's where being 10% braver comes in. Being scared and taking the first step anyway.
And how would you say people, like, you don't watch the news, that's one way. And I think just kind of to pull on your wisdom a little bit more. So when someone is being sexist, or when, you know, when it's the blatant sexism or the blatant racism, that's easier to go, you know, that's not okay. You're racist. That's racist, or that's sexist. It's the gray area of sexism or racism that I feel people don't speak up or don't express themselves. So in your experience and your wisdom, how can someone call that out?
It's hard.
That's where the challenge is, right?
It is. And you've got to be you. That's the most important thing. And what what I've got at my disposal is humor and endearment. And I'm a big hit with, like, older white men. They love me. I don't know. I'm a magnet for, like, older white men. They think I'm great. So my friend tells this story of being in a meeting, and it's in the north, and there's a guy there, and he's cross, something hasn't gone right, and he's banging the table, and he's going, all these leaders, they need to grow some balls. What's the phrase? Grow a pair, or
get some balls.
And this guy leant over. He talks about allyship. Anyway, he leant over. He's like a white guy, older white guy, and he said, you know, testicles are quite vulnerable as they're sort of dangling around, waiting to get damaged. A vagina, on the other hand, is a robust organ. You know, it's tucked away neat, it's strong, it can birth humans. I think a vagina is a better analogy. And the guy looked at him and went, "You're right, they should grow a vagina." And that was phrase. I've got it on a mug, grow a vagina. So it's just there are little things that you can do that challenge within human. And look, you can't do it all the time, right? Because you'd be knackered. And you've got to have the emotional energy in order to go forward. And there are times when someone will say something, and I think, do I have the emotional energy and the generosity required and the grace to gift this person with a conversation about this? And often I don't. I don't.
Fair enough. Yeah, me too.
I'm close to, my friends, colleagues, people I care about, people I know have an impact and have had an impact on me. Like I've just said, am I the only woman? Am I the only one with a vagina in the group? I try and find a way of asking a question, right? Because I don't have any answers, but it's just about asking a question. So it's the tiny things. And listen, the next time it happens, the next time someone says something and you say to yourself, am I going to be 10% braver, or am I going to let it go? It doesn't really matter what happens. If you're not brave enough, that's fine, but own it. own that you weren't brave enough. So next time you're like, I didn't do this last time. You've got to cumulatively build to the point where you go, can we have a courageous conversation? Because if you say that to someone, you're framing it. Can we have? I find it, and I did this with my brother. I find it really hard when you say things to your son like, don't be a girl. Because, you've got your daughter there and your wife there and me there, and you're saying, don't be a girl. And it was the most beautiful conversation we had. He said, well, that's just what you say. I said, yeah, but on the other side of it, can you see what it feels like? And he said, well, I said, it's kind of sexist, Pete. And he's like, I'm not sexist. That's just how I was brought up. And I said, what a great revelation. He doesn't identify as being sexist because that's what he's always known. Right. And he lived in different foster homes. And I'm like, interesting. So what do you want Jessica to learn? What do you want? What do you want Sarah to? How do you want me to feel? Because that's within your control. So what? Right. And it was a really interesting conversation. But I was terrified of bringing it up and having a big argument. But we had that conversation. I've got so much more respect for him because he got. I was trying not to be judgmental, but I'm super judgy. He was choosing to get curious. He was actually the bigger person in that conversation. And I would never have had that with him if I hadn't have been brave enough to have that career. You've got emotional capital with people. You've got relational capital. They're the people I would start with, the smallest things. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. No, really wise, really clever.
Well, wise. I have my moments, Elliot.
It's funny. What I find it really ironic is I had the exact same conversation with my friend. I was doing one of my events down in Sevenoaks, and a friend of mine caught up with me. And she said, she used the expression, I need to grow a pair and drive and come and see you in Devon. And I said, why would you want to grow a pair? We're quite vulnerable. We're actually quite weak. Nice. And I literally said to her, no, you want to grow a vagina.
Yes.
I said, and so it's funny that this conversation's going on. And I just wonder how much the extent of polarization has come into play, which is why people don't call these things out. Because it can be so, people could, it seems like we're on one side or another side. And if you're on that side, it means something, which isn't right, And so I think those conversations come now with almost like an umbrella of fear of being ostracized or completely cut out, or you're on the wrong side. And, and I just wonder if that plays a part in it. I'm not justifying any of it,
Like if you order the wrong pizza topping, you could be called a Nazi. I mean, you can make mistakes without knowing it. You're in fear of being cancelled all the time. And I feel like, for me, two people could say the same thing, like, where are you from? And I've spent 55 years in a brown skin suit. I can tell when they're racist and when they're just asking. It's not what you say, it's the way it's said. And I understand that fear. I do understand that fear. But we have to agree, if we're going to go forward to next, we have to agree that we can be on the same planet and think something different. We have to agree.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, like, when I go to the US, the first time I went, I'm like, I'm going to find someone who supports, when Trump was first coming up, I'm going to find someone who supports Trump and make friends with them. I want to be friends with someone who kind of supports things that I feel like I couldn't support that. How can you support? Not just have a conversation, actually be friends. And I found someone, we're on a table and they were all obviously not voting for Trump, and she said something in support of him and everyone just looked at her like she'd come out in a rash or something. And I'm like, that's the one. So I sat with her and we had a chat, and I found we had so much in common. We had so many values that we share, but we had different narratives. She had a singular story around what was happening, and I had several different stories that didn't allow me to have that single story. That's what we discovered. And still, bless her, she's a Christian. She sends me embroidered, I don't know what they're called, but you put them up, it's got Bible bits on. She sends me stuff all the time. We still have an ongoing friendship. We're polar opposites. But we found a way of, and I know it sounds like this, people keep, well, no one's called me a snowflake, but I guess I am. What is it, a liberal? What am I? I'm just like, mate.
I don't know. I really don't want to use any terminology.
I know. I don't know. I don't associate with any of those, but whatever labels people want to put on me, that's fine. I know who I am. We all benefit when things are peaceful and we can work together and grow. That is how we've got here. We are a fantastic species. We are able to evolve and build things and create amazing things. You can't do it if you're arguing all the time. You can't do it if you're just on X, shout in your corner. You can't do it if you're stuck in Reddit, having some debate with a troll that you don't even know. So there are spaces to have better conversations than those platforms. And I think polarization is hard. It's hard. And I'm sure I've said things throughout my talks that people have come up and said something to me afterwards. And I have to fight back oh my gosh, that's what you want to make a fuss. That's what you want to pick on that. But it's all feedback is a gift, you know, until it
Yeah.
not. But all
Yeah.
feedback is a gift. And I'm like, so how do I check? And if I'm making those compromises in myself, because what I want to do is just punch everyone, I'm compromising by having conversations instead of punching, then I have a right to invite people into that as well, because it's hard for me. So I can invite. If it was easy for me, I'd be like, it's a bit selfish, isn't it, making other people work hard. But
Yeah.
these are conversations that I want to. I don't want to. I don't want, you know, my kids. My daughter said to me when she was at uni, she never leaves the house. She's never once left the house without being harassed. Right? She's gorgeous and she's tall and beautiful, but without
she is, I remember.
someone trying to grope her or sit next to her on a bus, some guy trying to chat her.
That's not right.
And all I could think was, that was my experience when I was her age. I've been on the planet for 25, 30 years since then. What have I done to make it better? Have I actually done anything to make it better? Or have I just tried to avoid it and now she's do you know what I mean? So it's I want, the whole point is that you leave the planet better than you found it. You know, when you go in toilets, say, please leave this toilet as you'd expect to find it. I'm like, no, we're speakers. We're better than that. Please leave this toilet better than you'd expect to find it. And I did that in a school once. I just graffitied their sign, and then I left my Tampax there, and then the next month I went back, I left some like quotes. Next month I went back, there were decals on the wall, there were bean bags, they turned it into a nurture room, there were teachers there crying. It was brilliant. We are on this planet to leave it better than we found it, not as we found it or as we'd like, better than. So you got to take a risk. It's going to involve risk, but there are people who won't judge you, the people who love you. Speak to them first. And I will speak to me. I do courageous conversations all the time. So send me a DM and we can set up a 30-minute courageous conversation. I video them, they go on YouTube. But I'm like, I don't have any answers, but I'm happy to have a conversation that comes from a space of heart, you know, not from a space of hate, because there's plenty of that around. I don't need to add into that. You know, hate's got us where we are. So maybe we try something else.
Not working, is it? Definitely not working. So no, brilliant. Okay, so one last thing, and then I'll ask you a final message. What's your favorite story to close your talk on?
My favorite story.
I mean, I love the story you tell about the boat. I think that's great.
The boat is a good story. I think it's Ed, though. Ed is my favorite story.
Do you want to share it in the favorite story in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, I was married. I got divorced. I was leaving. I entered.
I did not know that. I didn't know you were married before.
Vicar. When I was 26, I married a 52-year-old white guy who was a vicar.
I did not know.
Funnily enough, it didn't work, Elliot. Who could have predicted?
I wonder why.
Yeah, well, it was not a good relationship. But anyway, I was emigrating. I entered Marie Claire Man of the Month because you got your photo in a magazine. You got a free dinner if you won. Ed was Man of the Month. He picked someone else. She blew him out, luckily for him. Then he picked me. We went to dinner. I saw him. He's like, I mean, Ed's gorgeous. You've met him. He's just beautiful.
Yeah, he's a good man.
He's a good guy. I saw him and I thought, there's no way he's going to fancy me. So I just relaxed. I was myself. I picked my nose. I burped. I farted. We went through the meal. The photographer from Marie Claire said, I'm going to do your wedding. And we were like, we've just met. He took me to a beautiful restaurant after that. Then we went to a bar. Then he said, have you ever been to Brighton? And I was like, no. Do you want to go? Yeah. When? Now. And we drove to Brighton Beach and we walked down Brighton Beach hand in hand. And he said to me, I want to walk down this promenade with you when we're in our 80s. And then he drove me back to London and I fell asleep on him and I woke up and saw that I dribbled down his shirt. So I jumped out the car, I was half asleep and I went, thanks. And I ran into the house and I realized I didn't have his number because the magazine had arranged it all. I rushed back to the door to open it, to shout after him. And he was standing at the door and he said, can I have your number? And that was Marie Claire. We were in there 20 years later, you know, married, 3 kids, madly in love, still, you know, chasing each other around the bedroom. That's my favorite story that I don't often tell, but it is. I've got 2 lives, before Ed and after Ed. The boy is
still with Ed. It's not after Ed.
Still with Ed, since Ed.
Since Ed, yeah. Because there's no, we haven't, hopefully we never reach the after Ed part, right?
No, I can't see that happening. I mean, it's been 25 years. We've got 3 kids. Neither of us are going anywhere. It would take a lot of effort, you know. We're just going to stick with it.
That is a beautiful story. That's so nice. And having met Ed, he's a really, really lovely person. Well, and he supports you so much, right? And I think that's a massive part of having that support unit around you, and you've talked about that.
Yeah.
What's your final message for people about the Speaker Awards, and then we'll say our goodbyes, because we've been talking and we could keep going, but we do have to wrap this up.
We'll try and break a record next time. It's really simple. Be 10% braver. What would your life look like if you were just 10% braver? I can tell you. You'd apply for the Speaker Awards. You'd apply in every category you can. You'd put yourself out there. You'd turn up on the day. Come and find me. I'll be there. I'll sit with you and chat and have a coffee. Show up, step out, stand. That is in whatever way it looks like. But in the tiny, just do a tiny step. Go to the website today, like register so you get told when it's coming out. Just do something tiny today and gift yourself, that kind of ability to be part of something. And if you've come before as well, don't think, oh, I've done it now. Come again and contribute and add, because that's what I have benefited so much. Every time I turn up, I try and give, and I benefit so much from that. So come along if you haven't come along. Apply if you've never applied. Apply again if you've applied before. If you've applied before and not been shortlisted, apply again. Put yourself in the running. That's my advice.
Do you know, very quickly, just remind me, great advice, by the way. You know Mark LaRousse story? Do you know Mark?
No, tell me.
He was kind of behind Movember and all that. And he applied, I think, 4 years before he finally got either shortlisted or won. I can't remember. But he even sent us a message going, what is it I'm not doing?
Yeah.
And so I kind of gave him general. And then I think it was only last year he finally made it on the podium. But here's a funny story. He couldn't make it. He'd bought the ticket and everything. He's ready to show up. And then he sends an email a few days before going, I forgot it's my wedding.
Oh. Oh my gosh. Not a great start to a marriage.
He's like, I think I need to get my priorities right here. So, but yeah, he finally made it. So it took him 4 years. For him to make it to the podium. So that just reiterates the point you're making about coming back, better, stronger, bouncing back. So
and
amazing.
It makes that story. The worst thing that can happen is that you win first time, that you miss out. You miss out on that story, on that journey, if everything goes well. So aim to fail, and then if you don't, it's a bonus. And if you do, you learn something. So yeah.
Perfect. Jazz, thank you so much for your heart, your mind, your wisdom, your intelligence, your stories, everything you bring beyond just the awards, everything you do for people, for young people, for businesses, for brands, just for being you. So thank you so much. And we will have a marathon one day of podcasting.
Thank you for now, and for doing this for everyone, because I know that people are going to get so much out of these. I'm going to be tuned into every single episode. But thank you for going first. Thank you for showing what a good one looks like, so people like me can respond. It really is a gift. I don't think you always realise how appreciated you are for what you do. Thank you for that.
That's nice to hear. I got goosebumps again. So let's end it there, shall we, before this goes to another place.
Goodbye,
Will. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Listen, this was an epic episode. Thank you to Jazz. If you want to find out more about the Speaker Awards, we open on the 26th of March at 2 p.m. is the webinar. But if you can't make it to that, just register. We'll send you everything, and then you can apply, because you never know where you're going to land. Till the next time, we'll see you soon.